The following podcast contains spoilers for The Mandalorian.
You must reunite it with its own kind.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature?
This is the way.
This is the Bunzerelli Show.
There was kind of a drought on content, and we brought the show back, we brought everything back, everything in full system, and then it got to a point where it was like, what are we doing? Because everything kind of froze up, and out of the blue, it was almost like fate, because right when I realized the season premiere of Mandalorian was coming out, Khiim literally texted me the same day, and he goes, yo, I got Disney Plus, what are you doing? So joining me back via Skype, Khiim's here to break down some Star Wars for me. Khiim, thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Thank you. How you doing, guys?
Khiim, your first thoughts on the season premiere of Mandalorian? What'd you think?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a good way to kick it off. They had like just the right enough energy to start off the season. You know, I really liked how it kind of had this like old Western like vibe to it as far as everything, the whole cowboy aspect. You know, that really honed into like what I think the Mandalorian character is, kind of represents in the universe, you know?
Yeah, and the whole thing is kind of like a space Western, and that was really like George Lucas's initial vision for the thing. Or maybe it was a little bigger than that, like an opera, but you just bring it down. You take the Jedi out of it. Obviously, there's some Force stuff, but it's just zeroed in. It's still that same world, but you're just kind of like down a level, a little like ground to earth.
Yeah, it's a very humbling like take on the Star Wars universe.
Well, it's also interesting too because it's like it goes back to what we talk about with kind of like the new trilogy, and we're going to jump right into the show too. But you get into the new trilogy where everybody's like kind of beating these dead horses and they're like trying to explore Luke and Han, and things were okay, and you can go back and forth on that, which we will. But it's like you have so much to play with, and now you don't have any rules or constraints. And look what you could do. Like every episode is just freaking fun. And this thing just started just started right into it. Like, I'll tell you one thing, if I had to describe this episode, it was like, when it started, I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Like the whole episode. That's how I felt. Starting off with the first scene, and we'll go through that. Surprisingly, I printed out the IMDb, and that, let me see, I think it was Cor Caress, or I can't read my own handwriting, but the first alien that the Mandalorian is talking to, the one-eyed alien, that was John Gor Koresh. That was John Leguizamo. He's even harder to say than Gor Koresh. But that was him. And they had that scene, and right away, and it's cool because they do the slow and they do the fast, like really quick, just like a quick action scene. And it was just,
they always executed really well.
Yeah, it was just like smooth, nothing fancy, nothing over the top. It was just like it's exciting cowboy stuff. It's not like a little kid would watch and be like, "Oh, hey, look at me, I'm the Mandalorian." It was just cool. And literally, and the first thing was they said chapter 9. That was how they opened it. I totally forgot they were going by chapters and stuff. It's like, nope, we're still going. Like next day, he's out there doing his thing, and so he's searching for the Mandalorian and everything. So he totally gets him with sends him to Tatooine. Right off the bat, I'm like, we're going back. Freaking sweet. We've been to Tatooine 3 times on this show. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like in the prequels and the new trilogy, we've been there like twice. We've been there 3 times in this TV show. And it goes to show you could walk around Tatooine and there's so many things. There's Mos Espa, Mos Eisley, which I love that scene with Peli Motto, who's played by Amy Sedakas, but she's explaining like, oh yeah, Mos Pelgo, which nobody ever heard of. Like, oh yeah, nobody does hear about it.
I was going to say, and that just kind of goes back to what you were saying, how they have just a little bit more freedom to really be able to like go in and like flesh out these worlds completely.
Yeah, Tatooine's a planet. It's not just Mos Eisley and Mos Espa. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a big round ball. I mean, there's all kinds of, 3PO and R2 got lost in the desert. So there's a lot going on to this planet. So yeah, play with that. And So he's sent on his way to Mos Pelgo. Now, so I see the Marshal, all right, because he's looking for a Mandalorian. He heard rumors of Mandalorian. Now, I had heard rumors. There were already rumors about Boba Fett floating around there. There was rumors that Tamora Morrison had been signed. So you put two and two together. But the thing with Tamora Morrison is he could be playing anybody. He could be Captain Rex, which he still might do. He could be an abandoned clone. He could be anything. Just because he's signed on, he could be a billion people. So even the Boba Fett stuff, I'm like, well, they're saying it. I'm like, I don't. And
Star Wars fans and the creators love to do that.
Yeah, it's like, well, they're saying, even like the Spider-Man stuff I was hearing, I was like, this all sounds great, but all I'm hearing is rumors. I can't get excited about a rumor. If I see a trailer, I could be like, oh, look at that, 3 Spider-Man. But like, boy, hey, I bet that's going to be cool. That's all I had to say about that. You know what I'm saying? But, and the first thing you see is freaking, why don't you ask him? And you see Boba Fett's freaking armor over a freaking sweatshirt, a casual sweatshirt that apparently that guy's been wearing his whole life. But the freaking Marshal, and the Marshal is played by Timothy Oliphant, who, I don't know if you've ever watched the Santa Clarita Diet.
I have not, but I am familiar with him from something else. I forget what it was.
Yeah, he's done something else, I think even bigger than that, but I just got hooked on that Santa Clarita Diet, so I got to know him. Didn't even recognize him at first with the beard. Of course, he's playing, Cobb Vanth, who's the Marshal. So it's funny because I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's Boba Fett, but something looks off. So the first thing I take in my head is, okay, well, obviously, whatever happened to him, he's got whatever armor he's got salvaged left, and he's sitting there, and he's just standing there. I'm like, okay. Because in my head, I'm putting it together. I'm trying to jump ahead of what the story's doing. So I'm like, okay, Boba Fett, like, the Empire fell, and he just doesn't know what to do with himself. He became the Marshal of this town. But when he takes his helmet off, and it's not remotely like him, you know, because I was like, well, did he grow? Is that Tamora Morrison with a beard? Like, nope, it's definitely not. And it's the funniest thing the Marshal said is because of what the audience was thinking. I swear it was written on purpose. He goes, I bet you don't like...
kind of fourth wall punch.
Yeah, he goes, I bet you're really mad to see me in this armor, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, we thought you were going to be Boba Fett. So they go group up for that mission with the Sand People. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let's start. First is we got to go kill this dragon. So right away, I assume the dragon is the Sarlacc. That was my first thought. Yeah. I'm like, that's the Sarlacc because this armor's here. So we're going to get into it. So I'm getting like, oh, it's that. And that's probably what made the tension of the show kind of there. Yeah. Because like the whole time you're like, and even Baby Yoda, who once again, I like for all the nerds out there, we know he's not Baby Yoda, but it's kind of what fandom called him. He, you know, he's technically supposed to be referred to as the child. The funny thing is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau know the child's name, which will be relief for all us podcasters. So we have something to call him. So if we call him the child or Baby Yoda, we're just going to let it slide. But, you know, it's just a pop culture happening there. Even the Mandalorian, like his talking to the Sand People and all that. Just like you said, we're exploring Sand People all of a sudden.
Exactly.
You know, like they are.
All of these novelty characters that we've known with the Star Wars universe this whole time, we're finally getting like background and history and just getting so much more from them.
Yeah, it's like a big playground. It's like they're playing with their toys. I mean, we've had Jawas. Now there's a second time. We've had Sand People. It's like all this stuff is out there, which is why I really think this is going to set the tone for the way things happen moving forward with Star Wars. Because I think this is the best Star Wars that we've had since Disney, or pretty close. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as I don't know, breaking new ground.
I would definitely agree.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree. You know, and just even how it's shot, I think it visually is like the best piece of Star Wars we've gotten. Like everything is just so smooth, and like the way the CGI is laid in, like a lot of it looks practical sometimes.
Well, I watched the special on Disney, and it did like what's it called, like Star Wars Into the Magic and stuff, and the technology they used is really cool. What it is it's like this circular almost movie screen, but something a little more complex. It's like a digital screen. And what it is so it's around these actors. So they have these backgrounds, whether they're digitally made or shooting, but the thing that makes it look real is normally it was an actor in front of a green screen, and then they just put in the background. And then it's things like perspective and things like and lighting get lost. The new technology they developed, and Jon Favreau, who wrote and directed this show, he's the executive producer, and then my boy Dave Filoni's a producer, but he developed this technology during The Lion King. No, the one he did before that, The Jungle Book. Apparently, he developed that technology for that, and he brought it over. So what happens is you have this circle screen, and you have the lighting. The lighting is very complex. The lighting works with the screen. So what happens is you could change camera angles. You could pan the camera around the Mandalorian, and he's still in that environment. And that's what makes it look realistic. You know what I'm saying? And,
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and
kind
also
of more like almost a 3D image, kind of.
Yeah, and they're also not trying to hit us with the crazy visuals because it would look out of place. This is 7 years after Return of the Jedi. So you got to put us in that OT world, which we really are in. It's really, like, awesome.
It's bare bones. Yeah, it's bare bones, but still futuristic at the same time. It almost seems like a near future kind of a way, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, but they show you some new things. I mean, look, what do they got? She had pit droids. We've seen pit droids. We've seen stuff from the prequels. We've seen, that little container that originally the Mandalorian had something in that. But what the hell was it called? The Bosk or something? Remember you had that Bosk, the Marshal, filled with the gems?
Yeah, and it had the gems and crystals in it.
Yeah, and the Mandalorian had like Beskar or something in it in the first season. But there's a joke behind that because that's like in Empire Strikes Back when they're all like running from Cloud City. Somebody's running around with that thing. And it was like an inside joke. Like, what has he got? An ice cream machine? Like, what is that thing? He's just running with it. And the Mandalorian, and Jon Favreau said, he goes, what if we made this thing actually something cool? And they did. Like, they filled in gaps and did everything. And it's like, and it's Jon Favreau, big fan of Star Wars. He's got Dave Filoni on his right hand, who's the Clone Wars. He studied under George Lucas.
Filoni.
Yeah, he's basically the top dog right now. And I mean, as far as a resource of Star Wars knowledge, and the cool thing about his relationship with Jon Favreau is Dave Filoni is crazy, like, deep into Star Wars. Like, there's stuff I could post on, like, Rebel Force Radio where he says they have specific snippets where he talks about Anakin and Padme. He talks about, like, Qui-Gon and breaks him down. Like, he gets deep. And he's like, that's how I got the job, from having these conversations with people. And he worked with George and everything, and but it was all animation. So Jon Favreau is developing him as into live action. What I think is going to happen down the road, and we're going to get back to The Mandalorian, is what I think is going to happen down the road is, I don't even know if he's trying to do it or it's going to happen, but I think Dave Filoni is going to be big in he is big in Star Wars, but I think he's going to start climbing that ladder.
Yeah, for cinema.
Yeah, now that he's doing that, I'm talking about like Kathleen Kennedy's job.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, just calling the shots.
I want.
But just calling the shots and just being like, or they go to him, hey, can we do this? I don't know if you ever heard Dave Filoni talk, but so they got to make an arrangement with the Sand People, and that they had, and like I said, once again, it's just cool visuals. Just the march of the Sand People and the Banthas towards that town and that tension was a freaking awesome scene. No fancy spaceships or light shows or, you know what I'm saying? Just good TV. Like, I think somebody that never watched any of it would just say, wow, this show is good. What's going on? What's going to happen?
Exactly. They definitely put, I don't know, it's like they gave the show more weight than it just being Star Wars. At times, like, when I'm watching, I even forget that it is Star Wars, especially when, like, going back to the first season. Mm-hmm. Like, there was times I forgot, like, oh, wait, I forgot. This is the Star Wars universe. It just seems like a show, you know?
Yeah, and even like the first season, you were kind of honed in on a Mandalorian, and by the end of that first season, we got to know him. This episode, I was barely even lost in the Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? I was more like the situation. Like when they're fighting the actual Levithian, that's I believe they've referred to it, and they would call it the dragon, the sand people. But when they're fighting that thing, I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? I was looking at Baby Yoda, and I'm waiting for him to do something. I'm like, this thing is too big for him. He fell asleep for 3 days after doing that elephant or whatever he did. He's just like, there's no way he's going to do that. And then, of course, the Marshal lights up the Boba Fett gear. He's been practicing. Him and Mandalorian just flying side by side. I mean, who would have dreamed we would see something like that?
Yeah, honestly, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so I guess it's I guess anybody could do this.
Yeah, I guess he did the drills or whatever he did. But now we have the battle, and another thing is, there's a couple times I'm still waiting for Boba Fett. I'm still like, the armor's there. It's got it. You don't just do the armor and he's not anywhere.
Yeah.
There was a couple times.
He's not explained, yeah.
So first, when the Mandalorian was about to like get in a shootout with the Marshal, I kind of thought in my head like all of a sudden he's gonna get shot in the head from the side, like by Boba Fett, and be like, "This is mine." That was my first thing. As they start fighting this dragon, and they start because they made it clear this thing probably ate a Sarlacc.
Yeah.
Which I was again. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, is Boba Fett going to pop out of that cave? And I'm like, kind of. And I'm like, and the more I think about it, I'm like, nah, it's just, it's not right. It's just not, it's kind of not making sense. And then when they finally beat the dragon, so they're cutting the dragon up. And, you know, the sand people are taking their prize. Even Mandalorian takes like some leftovers home and everything. And I'm thinking in my head, like, at this point, I was going to kind of get annoyed if I saw, because I was expecting to see somebody kind of pushing through the flesh. And I was going to be like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, he's still alive in this thing that ate the thing. Yeah. But at the end, I swear, as he flies off in the end, and you see as soon as I saw the back of the head, I go, that's him. That's got to be him. It's like, who else is watching? Tamora Morrison, a.k.a. Boba Fett, bring consistency to everything and the shows and everything. I have a theory about this, Khiim. So I'm going to say the theory. I had this theory in my head because I'm like, what can you put together? And they do it. They've done it. Even Darth Maul, which is far-fetched, but is easier to swallow in a cartoon. But this is live action. So I am going to do one of my theories here. And I'm going to call the scene. This will be a flashback of Boba Fett. I am wondering this. So I think they're going to flash back to minutes after Return of the Jedi. Like, show Han and Luke going away in the speeder. Like that soon. Maybe, and then maybe a little later for days. Because he didn't look in bad shape. He had a scar on his eye, but that could have been like Han Solo punching him. You know what I'm saying? That could have been from anywhere. He's Boba Fett. But here's what I'm thinking. So, shortly after him getting eaten by, he's in his armor, he gets eaten by the Sarlacc. Shortly after, the Levithian comes and attacks the Sarlacc. All right? Now, I remember how the Levithian was spitting out that acid from its stomach?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it takes a bite out of the Sarlacc and does something and, gets Boba Fett out of there. Or something or in the battle, or if it was immediately. But Boba Fett is covered in that acid, and he frantically removes his armor and just gets the hell out of there. And then the questions it brings is, because that's a realistic flashback I could see and be like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, honestly. Especially with what they it'd be kind of like foreshadowing too, what we just went through in the first episode.
That's what I think. I think that's why it's so good, because you had to explain all these other things first. And we might not even see this Boba Fett play out, which is a testament to the show, because the show is so good, I just want to see whatever the next show is. I'm almost guessing it's not going to be Boba Fett, but it's going to be, so here's some questions regarding that. So, first of all, did Boba Fett not know the Marshal had his armor? Which is true, because I'm thinking maybe he just followed the Mandalorian out of Mos Eisley. He said, there's a Mandalorian, let me see what he's up to, kind of thing. So there's that theory. Because why did he just let the Marshal keep his armor? Especially, I don't know if it's supposed to be Jango's armor. I never got that. Like if it was Jango's with a paint job.
You know how she said if you go flying in there, they'll see you from miles away. So that could be possible. Maybe he did get spotted. I don't know.
No, oh yeah. Foreshadowing there. But I'm saying, is Boba? I'm sorry, not the Mandalorian. Boba Fett, is his armor supposed to be Jango's armor? Because I think it's the exact same shape and everything. So I don't know if it's like he spray painted it or it's just the rust and the wear. But it is, I believe it's all the same nooks and crannies as the Jango Fett armor, which goes
and if you, like you said, it's damaged from the acid.
Yeah, well, no, but it was, even I'm saying in Return of the Jedi, it's not the same color as Jango's armor. So that's why I was like, when I looked at Jango and I look at him side by side, I'm like, everything looks like you could tell the difference between the Mandalorian's armor and Boba Fett's armor, even without the Marshal wearing it, like back in the original Boba Fett. Like it is different, like all of them. So now Dave Filoni has tossed around a theory of. Well, no, he was talking about it once. And I listened to it. You know, I'm actually probably going to post it just to like kind of put out the George Lucas thoughts on it. But he said something like, George was very explicit that Jango was not a Mandalorian. But here's the thing. From watching The Mandalorian, now we know Mandalorian doesn't have to be just the race. It's a creed.
Yeah.
So Jango could be a foundling, because what I'm saying is, I don't see any other way, because the whole thing with Mando and the Marshal was Mando didn't like a non-Mandalorian having that armor. You know, like that belongs to us. That's Beskar. That's our peoples. That's everything. So what would have him give it back to Boba, unless they're just going to fight out for it? But eventually you got to put Boba back in that thing. I'm not saying him and Boba are going to be buddies, but I'm assuming he's going to get that armor back somehow. So unless he proves that his father was a Mandalorian or by creed or something, Boba's out. Obviously not. He just raised a clone and just went into bounty hunting after his dad died. But we don't know much about Jango. You know what I mean? It was just a guy wearing Mandalorian armor. But that's some cool things to explore, to actually hear Boba refer to his father. Things like that. And the consistency of having Tamora Morrison, because he redubbed all the vocals of Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi after the prequels came. So it's just a consistent, like I said, because there's rumors of Ahsoka and there's rumors of, Sabine. I didn't even look it up. It just popped back on my head. Okay. So yeah. So Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, which by the way, you put Sabine Wren in her like armor live action, or Ahsoka in live action is going to be dope. If they do it right, which they already crammed in Boba Fett, and we bought that. It didn't look forced or anything. Like, it's actually compelling. It doesn't seem like, they just want to bring Boba Fett back because he's cool. You didn't need to. You had the Mandalorian. It's not like we already got a cool guy in Mandalorian armor that looks like Boba Fett. But they're just doing it, and it freaking works. But, so if you bring those two back, Captain Rex ain't that far behind. So now you have Tamora Morrison playing like two different characters. You throw a gray beard on him. I mean, it's just some interesting things they could do. And Dave Filoni has written all that stuff. He did Clone Wars and Rebels. So you bring Ahsoka, it's going to be Ahsoka. He made Ahsoka. Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, when she first started, was like, fans hated her. They're like, what is this? Like, Anakin's got a Padawan, and they weren't willing to accept it. But it was like, all of a sudden she grew on people. She grew where she showed up in Rebels, and everyone's like, whoa, awesome.
Yeah.
But so
people crave for her to be back.
Yeah, and even in live action, it's rumored Rosario Dawson, but like I said, rumors, I don't like to dig into them too much. But I think it'll be good. So I definitely wanted to actually talk about the series as a whole with you, Khiim, and kind of see like your feelings. I know it's kind of all fresh in your head because you just like experienced it for the first time this week. So what do you think about The Mandalorian?
Honestly, I love it. I love it. Like, by the second episode, I was just like, yeah, this is going to be a fun ride. Yeah, for sure.
It's like I said, it's a lot of exploring cultures, and it's kind of interesting too because they're touching upon things from the Clone Wars and Rebels, but it's stuff that's okay. So there's actually been a purge of Mandalore. We still know nothing about that. They kind of like refer to what's happening with like, in flashbacks with the Mandalorian, what happened to him. but to actually see, because the Mandalorians we saw in Clone Wars aren't like these Mandalorians. So I believe that was the actual race, and that was the actual people before it became a creed. I think the creed was adopted or taken from the remaining, like, because they were almost wiped out. That's why I think it is a creed. But they're exploring that, like I said, because Dave Filoni's there to bridge that gap. And I don't think they would let that continuity get. What I'm saying is, I think there's pieces of the puzzle that we're going to find out. And even Moff Gideon. It's him at the end with that Darksaber. That's straight out of Clone Wars and Rebels. It's like, whoa! Like they
that was
playing.
amazing.
Yeah, it's like that's the last scene you see. Baby Yoda.
Yeah, Baby Yoda. No, that was that's great. I'm really interested to see where that's going because, like you said, we clearly know it's not Yoda. So, but no, I don't know. I'm really just excited to see that because it almost ensures us that we're going to get like so much more ahead, you know?
Oh, there's some theories going around with what's going on with Baby Yoda. Just because of hints, certain things, and a lot of this I hear after the fact, so I'm going to give credit where credit's due is Rebel Force Radio, because they could really dissect Star Wars. But they mentioned things like, he goes, it's too young to be a strandling, and he's referring to, like, cloning and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're kind of talking about the gene fields. They're kind of, I think this is another foreshadowing. And like, why do they want Baby Yoda? And I think it's gonna somehow, but I don't want to see. See, here's the thing: people are saying it could tie into the resurrection of Palpatine and lead into that, but I don't want to go all the way there. You know what I mean? I don't think I want to see us walk right into Force Awakens. I want to stay where we are. You know what I'm saying?
I like the time period that we're in right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that I heard is actually one of my friends that I was talking to, and I know I had mentioned it back when we did the prequel trilogy. How remember on the council there was Yoda, but there was also a female of his species, Yaddle.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was wondering if that could have been like maybe their child or something.
Let me think. It could. Really could. You know what? The years are not bad because the child is supposed to be 50 years old.
Yeah.
According to IG. Is it 11 or 88? One's from the original thing. I think it's 11, actually. 88's the old one that IG-11 is based off of. But he said the child can be 50 years old. So if you say 50 years old, because you have 30 years. New Hope was supposed to be 30 years after Revenge of the Sith. So that would mean 20 years before Revenge of the Sith. So it is possible, yes. There's another possibility. Is his road going to take him to Luke? Would they do Luke? Could they? I mean,
that is possible.
It is technically possible to do Luke. It's technically possible to do with Mark Hamill, with that de-aging technology.
And you kind of see him before he got to the point in the new trilogy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. Obviously, The Mandalorian was a hit because there was no dragons in season 1. I mean, I think the budget got pushed up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I think now they have the weight. Well, because one of the things that's happening is Disney kind of announced this, and I think it's going off the base of what's going on with Mandalorian. Because if you think about it, no matter what happens with COVID and stuff, I drive past a movie theater now. And it's like, I see 5 cars. And even the movie theater has, like, now open signs. It's like, well, what are you showing? You know what I mean? And even when everything's over and everything, it's like, what? And it's almost a different conversation, but, like, what, things like cruise ships and movie theaters, like, what's going to survive this kind of thing? Because what I'm saying is, what's going on in an epic movie theater right now? Is there one kid just sweeping the floors? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is and really the future? And maybe it would come back, but if you think about like TV, I mean, now these streaming companies are really getting a chance to blossom. And,
exactly.
And like, you got the Marvel shows, which I was still kind of like this about The Mandalorian until I saw it. So maybe these Marvel shows are really just going to blow us away. You know what I mean? I mean, you got WandaVision, but even Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that got halted up, and they're still back on it. And then Ewan McGregor signed on for the Obi-Wan series. But the cool thing is, like we said before, about having that time to chill and think, I think because things got delayed and they're watching The Mandalorian, they're like, wait a minute, Obi-Wan doesn't have to Skype with Darth Vader. You know what I'm saying? Obi-Wan could be on his rogue. Obi-Wan could walk around Tatooine. Obi-Wan could run into, no, not really. He can't do the Marshal. That's after his time. But different characters. You know,
yeah, there's plenty of characters we've seen him, and it's not their first time meeting.
Yeah, the Hutts. The Hutts are still alive. Jabba's still alive. You know? I always like to imagine a story of a reluctant Obi-Wan having to work with Jabba because they got some common goal. You know?
Yeah.
Things like that. So, Khiim, thanks so much for being here, man. I look forward to doing this again next week.
Me too, man. Thank you for having me.